The flames were so intense that nobody could get close to the car.
To a pole or a tree bursting into flames. There you see a picture. Walker was best known for his role in the Fast and the Furious movies.
People screamed and ran toward the wreckage, hoping they could save the two men trapped inside. But within seconds, the fire swallowed everything. And when the world learned who was inside that burning Porsche, millions of fans refused to believe it.
The driver's side collided with a tree and a streetlight pole. The force of the collision caused the vehicle to spin again, and this time, the passenger side struck the tree. CCTV footage of the crash site revealed that nearly a minute after the crash, the car burst into flames.
Paul Walker was dead. The same man who became famous for surviving impossible crashes in Fast and Furious had died in a real-life car accident that shocked Hollywood and devastated fans across the globe. And sadly, his story is not the only one. From movie legends to music icons and even real royalty, these are 5 celebrity crashes that stunned the world and changed history forever. Grace Kelly. Some celebrities become stars, others become legends, but Grace Kelly became something much bigger than that. She became royalty.
She became a princess, and her life seemed like a dream come true. She lived in a beautiful palace and had all the luxuries she could ever want. But behind her regal facade was a reality that nobody knew.
Long before she was known as Princess Grace of Monaco, she was already one of Hollywood's brightest stars. During the 1950s, Grace Kelly had the kind of elegance that made people stop and stare. Directors loved her calm and sophisticated presence, and audiences adored her beauty. She met Prince Rainier III of Monaco, and suddenly the Hollywood actress was preparing to become a real princess. It felt like something from a fairy tale movie. Millions of people around the world followed the royal wedding closely. Women copied her fashion style. Newspapers covered every detail of her new royal life. She seemed to have everything anyone could dream of. But tragedy does not care who you are. On September 13, 1982, Grace Kelly was traveling with her daughter Princess Stephanie along a dangerous winding road near Monaco. The road curved through steep mountain areas overlooking the French Riviera. It was beautiful, but also difficult to drive through, especially with the sharp turns and narrow lanes. At first, everything seemed normal. Then something suddenly went horribly wrong. Reports later revealed that Grace Kelly likely suffered a stroke while driving. Imagine how terrifying that moment must have been. 1 second she was in control of the vehicle, and the next second her body was no longer responding properly. The car swerved off the road. It crashed through barriers and rolled down the mountainside, smashing through trees and rocks before finally stopping far below. The scene was devastating. Emergency crews rushed to help, and both Grace and Stephanie were pulled from the wreckage.
In Monaco, she was crowned a princess, and sadly, she died there as well. While driving with her daughter, she had a stroke and lost control of the car. The car veered off the side of the road, somersaulting over a cliff.
Princess Stephanie survived with injuries, but Grace Kelly's condition was critical. She had suffered severe brain damage and multiple internal injuries. Doctors fought desperately to save her life, but the damage was simply too great. The following day, the world received heartbreaking news. Grace Kelly was gone. The reaction was massive. News stations interrupted programming. Newspapers across the globe placed her death on the front page. People struggled to process how a woman who seemed to live the perfect life could disappear so suddenly. And honestly, what makes this story even sadder is how random it all felt. There was no wild speeding story, no dangerous racing, just a routine drive that turned catastrophic within seconds. But if Grace Kelly's crash stunned the world, the next story left people completely speechless. James Dean. Some stars shine brightly for years. James Dean barely had time to shine at all. And somehow, that made him even more legendary. By the mid-1950s, James Dean had become the symbol of youthful rebellion. He had this mysterious energy that audiences could not ignore. He was emotional, unpredictable, stylish, and different from the polished Hollywood actors people were used to seeing. Young audiences especially loved him because he felt real. Movies like East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause turned him into a rising sensation almost overnight. Hollywood executives believed he had unlimited potential ahead of him. But outside acting, James Dean had another passion: cars. Not ordinary cars either, fast racing machines. Dean loved speed and competition. He spent time around racing culture and became fascinated with high-performance sports cars. Eventually, he purchased a Porsche 550 Spider, one of the most dangerous and lightweight race cars of its era.
Despite the small engine, it was capable of outrunning much bigger cars thanks to weighing just 550 kilos.
He nicknamed the car Little Bastard. At the time, it sounded playful. Years later, the nickname would become chilling. On September 30th, 1955, James Dean prepared to travel to a racing competition in Salinas, California. Originally, there were plans to transport the Porsche on a trailer, but Dean wanted more driving experience with the car, so he chose to drive it himself instead. Along the trip, Dean and his mechanic stopped several times. At one point, Dean even received a speeding ticket. It probably seemed like a funny little inconvenience at the time. Nobody knew they were watching the final hours of a Hollywood legend. As evening approached, Dean continued driving along a California highway. At the same time, another driver named Donald Turnipseed approached an intersection ahead. Then came the fatal moment. Turnipseed attempted to turn left across the highway. Suddenly, both vehicles were directly in each other's path. James Dean tried to react quickly. Experienced drivers later suggested he attempted an evasive racing maneuver to avoid the collision. But there was not enough time. The Porsche crashed violently into the other vehicle. The lightweight sports car was destroyed almost instantly. Dean suffered catastrophic injuries, including a broken neck and crushed internal organs. His mechanic survived but was badly injured. James Dean was rushed to a nearby hospital, but doctors could not save him. He was only 24 years old. 24. That number still shocks people today because of how much influence he had already achieved in such a short life.
His live fast, die young persona caught up with him, and he lost his life in a fatal car accident.
The tragedy completely stunned Hollywood. Rebel Without a Cause had not even been officially released yet. When audiences finally watched the movie weeks later, it became even more emotional knowing the actor on screen was already gone. James Dean's crash became one of the most famous celebrity tragedies in history. Before we continue, remember that when this channel reaches 1,000 subscribers, there'll be a $100 Amazon gift card giveaway to celebrate the milestone. No entry process, just a random pick. Subscribe so you can follow along and see the announcement. Now let's continue because the next story changed road safety forever. Jayne Mansfield. Hollywood during the 1950s was full of glamorous stars, but Jayne Mansfield knew exactly how to stand out from the crowd. She was bold, playful, dramatic, and constantly in headlines. Studios promoted her as one of the most glamorous blonde actresses in America. She attended flashy events, wore eye-catching outfits, and understood perfectly how to keep public attention focused on her. Some people compared her to Marilyn Monroe because of her appearance and public image. Jayne embraced the attention completely. But by the 1960s, her movie career had slowed down significantly. She still performed in clubs and made appearances across the country, often traveling long distances overnight to keep working. Then came June 29, 1967, a date that would become permanently linked to one of the most horrifying highway crashes ever involving a celebrity. Jayne had just finished a nightclub performance in Mississippi and was heading toward Louisiana. Inside the vehicle were Jayne, her boyfriend Sam Brody, driver Ronnie Harrison, and several of her children asleep in the back seat. The road conditions that night were terrible. Fog drifted across the highway from nearby marshes. To make matters worse, a mosquito control truck nearby released thick insecticide spray into the humid air, reducing visibility even further. Imagine driving through darkness, fog, and chemical mist all at once. Ahead of them on the road was a large tractor-trailer moving slowly, but the driver of Jayne's car could barely see it. By the time the truck became visible, it was already too late. The Buick slammed directly into the back of the trailer at high speed. The crash was absolutely catastrophic. The top portion of the car was crushed as the vehicle slid underneath the trailer. The 3 adults in the front seat died instantly.
On the hunt for sensation, many news stories reported that Mansfield was decapitated, but this was later proven to be untrue.
And somehow, unbelievably, the children in the back survived. That detail still shocks people to this day. Many people believed she had been decapitated. Medical reports later clarified that this was not true, although the injuries were still extremely severe and tragic. But the crash had another major consequence that many people do not realize. It changed highway safety forever. After the accident, authorities pushed for stronger safety protections on large trailers. Eventually, metal bars were installed beneath trailers to stop smaller vehicles from sliding underneath during crashes. Those bars became informally known as Mansfield bars because of the tragedy that inspired the regulation. So in a strange and heartbreaking way, Jayne Mansfield's death helped save countless future lives. And now we move to a story that devastated millions of movie fans around the world. Paul Walker. Even people who never watched racing movies knew who Paul Walker was. He had a calm smile, laid-back personality, fast cars, and loyalty. He became the heart of the Fast and Furious franchise, and fans loved him for it. Ironically, the actor famous for surviving impossible movie car crashes could not survive a real one. November 30th, 2013 started like a completely normal day. Paul spent time with his family earlier that morning. Later in the day, Paul attended a charity event for Reach Out Worldwide, the disaster relief organization he founded to help communities after natural disasters. This was something many fans respected so much about him. Beyond the fame and movies, Paul genuinely cared about helping people. The event was held at a performance car shop in Santa Clarita, California. Car enthusiasts gathered around expensive vehicles while people talked, laughed, and supported the charity. Among the cars present that day was a Porsche Carrera GT. Now, if you know anything about supercars, then you know the Carrera GT had a serious reputation. This was not the kind of car you casually drove without experience. It was extremely fast and extremely powerful. Some professional drivers even described it as difficult to handle. Paul's friend Roger Rodas owned the car. Roger was not just a casual driver either. He was experienced behind the wheel and deeply involved in the car world. At some point during the afternoon, Paul and Roger decided to take the Porsche out for a short drive. But minutes later, everything changed forever. Witnesses later reported seeing the Porsche traveling at very high speeds along a suburban road lined with trees and light poles. Investigators would eventually estimate that the car was moving somewhere between 80 and 100 miles per hour before disaster struck. Then suddenly, Roger lost control. The Porsche slammed into a curb, spun violently, crashed into a tree, struck a light pole, and then hit another tree with enormous force. The impact alone was horrific. But then came the fire. Within seconds, flames consumed the wreckage. Thick black smoke filled the air while people nearby rushed toward the scene in panic.
The young hotshot in the top-rated film franchise The Fast and the Furious. Walker drove his car around a bend somewhere between 80 and 90 miles an hour when it spun out.
Friends from the charity event desperately tried to help. Some attempted to get close enough to pull the men out of the burning car, but the heat was unbearable. There was nothing they could do. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but by then the tragedy had already unfolded. Paul Walker and Roger Rodas were both pronounced dead at the scene. The internet exploded with disbelief. Production on Furious 7 immediately stopped. The cast and crew were devastated. Many of them had become close friends with Paul over the years, especially Vin Diesel. Eventually, filmmakers decided to complete the movie as a tribute to him. Paul's brothers helped finish certain scenes, while digital technology recreated his appearance where needed. And then came that final scene. If you have seen Furious 7, then you already know exactly what I'm talking about. The emotional farewell sequence became one of the most unforgettable endings in movie history. Fans cried in theaters around the world as the film honored Paul Walker's legacy. Even today, people still visit the crash site to leave flowers, messages, and photos. His death did not just affect Hollywood, it affected millions of ordinary fans who felt connected to him through his movies and personality. But the final story takes us much further back in time, to a music legend whose death shocked an entire generation, Bessie Smith. If you have never heard Bessie Smith sing, then you should know this. She was not just a singer, she was a force. Known as the Empress of the Blues, Bessie Smith became one of the most influential musicians of the 1920s. Her voice carried emotion in a way that deeply affected listeners. When she performed heartbreak songs, audiences felt every word. When she sang powerful blues numbers, entire theaters came alive. At the height of her career, she became one of the highest-paid black entertainers in America. That was an enormous achievement during a time filled with racism, segregation, and discrimination. Her records sold in huge numbers, but fame can fade quickly. By the 1930s, the Great Depression damaged the entertainment industry badly. Large tours became less common, and performers often traveled constantly between smaller shows just to continue earning money. That lifestyle meant endless hours on the road. On a dark September morning in 1937, Bessie Smith traveled along a highway between Memphis and Clarksdale with her companion Richard Morgan driving the car. Very little traffic moved through the rural area during those early hours. Then disaster struck. Ahead of them was a slow-moving truck. Richard attempted to pass it, but misjudged the situation badly. Their vehicle collided violently with the truck. The impact ripped apart much of the car and caused horrifying injuries to Bessie Smith. Witnesses later described the scene as extremely gruesome. She suffered severe trauma and massive blood loss while lying beside the road. Bessie Smith eventually died later that morning. The music world mourned deeply. Thousands attended her funeral to honor the woman whose voice had shaped blues music forever. She may have died, but her influence never disappeared. So which of these celebrity crashes shocked you the most? Drop your answer in the comments because I really want to know which story affected you the most. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because there are many more unbelievable stories coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.